Putin Bad News Putin's attempt to wipe out Ukraine is doomed to failure. On Sunday, Secretary of State Antony Blinken declared that Russian President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine is already lost, despite Blinken's continued optimism about the outcome of the conflict. According to Blinken's interview with ABC's Jonathan Karl on This Week, the reason that I remain very confident in the ultimate success of the Ukraine is that they are fighting for their country, for their future, for their freedom. The Russians are not. Remember that Putin has already failed to accomplish his goals. He was attempting to have Ukraine, an independent nation, absorbed by Russia. A failure has already occurred in that regard. These remarks follow Blinken's unexpected trip to Ukraine last week. During the trip, he announced an additional $1 billion in U.S. aid to Ukraine. This aid will include air support and other resources, which he says will build a force for the future, a military force of the future, that is capable of deterring future aggression, and if necessary, defending and defeating it. According to Blinken, there has been no indication that Putin is interested in meaningful diplomacy. It takes two to tango, and so far we've seen zero signs that Vladimir Putin cares about serious diplomacy, he said. If he does, I expect the Ukrainians to go into battle first, with us following closely behind. Everyone wants this conflict to end, but only on terms that are fair and long-lasting, and that respect Ukraine's independence and territorial integrity. Blinken said the United States has not encouraged or enabled the use of weapons outside of Ukraine's territory in response to questions about an increase in Ukrainian drone attacks on Moscow soil, but he did say that Russians are attacking indiscriminately across Ukraine. The head of the United States military has stated that Ukraine has about 45 days left before bad weather hinders its counter-offensive against Russia, and that if the West allows Vladimir Putin's invasion to stand, all of World War II will have been fought for nothing. General Mark Milley of the United States was a guest on BBC's Sunday. It is too soon to say whether Ukraine's summer offensive was successful, Admiral Sir Tony Radakin said alongside Laura Kuntzberg, the head of the United Kingdom's armed forces. According to General Milley, that offensive began around 90 days ago. The progress has been slower than expected. That, however, is the distinction Clausewitz drew between paper war and actual conflict. We are dealing with actual human beings operating actual vehicles while traversing actual minefields while experiencing actual physical resistance. And there's still a fair bit of time, perhaps another 30 to 45 days of fighting weather. Ukrainians aren't finished yet, it seems. We haven't yet won this war. The fighting component of their goal attainment is incomplete. It's too soon to tell how this turns out, so we'll have to wait and see. They've made significant progress toward their goals, which is encouraging. Then the storms will start rolling in. A lot of mud will accumulate. By that time, maneuvering will be extremely challenging, and then the harsh winter will set in. And then we'll see where things go from there. However, it is far too soon to say whether or not this offensive has been successful. Earlier in the week, Admiral Sir Tony Radakin said, Ukraine is winning, and Russia is losing, which he reiterated in the same BBC interview while in Arlington, America, to lay a wreath on the tomb of the unknown soldier. And Ukraine is triumphing because Russia's plan to subjugate Ukraine and bring it under Russian control has not worked and will not work in the foreseeable future. That's why the Ukrainian army is triumphant and making gains in its fight for territorial independence. It has regained half the territory that Russia had occupied, and now the international community is using economic and diplomatic pressure to make life difficult for Russia. Moreover, it has broken these rules and is paying the price. There have been reports of some small tactical gains from the Ukrainian counteroffensive that began earlier in the summer. The goal of the offensive was to reclaim territory that had been occupied by Russia.